The Senate Republicans have deployed their nuclear option to clear a path for Neil Gorsuch. According to the New York Times, the Republicans obviously could not secure enough votes to override the Democrats' filibuster. At the time, they voted. They essentially employed the nuclear option. All 52 Republicans chose to overrule the Senate precedent, and all 48 Democrats and liberal-leaning independents pushed to keep the precedent. The filibuster, according to New York Times, is designed to, of course, this is according to history, is designed to slow the Senate down and to elevate the power of the minority party. They kept using the Democratic precedent of 2013 as the justification for this, and that very few politicians actually parsed the difference between what Democrats did in 2013 and what Republicans did this year. Is very disappointing, and also demonstrates what I believe, that while the Democrats may be malicious, they are equally incompetent. There is a difference between what the Democrats did in 2013. It was the mini nuclear option, and this is where they changed the rules to get rid of the supermajority that was necessary for the lower courts. They maintained the rule for the Supreme Court, but for the lower courts, they did essentially got rid of the filibuster so that they can get judges, federal judges. Two things. Number one, clearly there's a qualitative difference between the lower court appointments and the Supreme Court appointments. The Supreme Court appointments, lifetime appointments that represent that should require a higher threshold. That's number one. That's the low-hanging fruit. But number two, the most significant difference between the two is that the Democrats had no choice but to employ this option in 2013 because they could not get a single judge appointed or cleared to actually fill the necessary seats in government, in the justice system. They couldn't. In the judicial, not the justice system, but the judicial branch. They could not do it because the Republicans put a blanket hold on every single nomination. The Republicans, for political posturing and for political games, put a blanket hold on every single nomination from President Obama. And that put the Democrats in a position to where if we want to have a functioning judicial branch of the government, we have to do something, because the Republicans are so intransigent and they're so politically motivated that they are not willing to confirm a single judge that President Obama nominated. And so out of the necessity of having a functioning branch of government, they had no choice but to relinquish and to get rid of, rather, the filibuster for the lower court appointments. And it blows me away that I have not heard a single Democrat push this point. They have stumbled in interviews as to how they can justify the difference between what was done with the lower court judges in 2013 versus what they're trying to do with Neil Gorsuch. Neil Gorsuch's confirmation process is not an attempt by Democrats to say we will not approve anyone. It's simple to say we're not going to approve this far-right originalist, or the person who's so far right that he gets to hide behind the moniker of being an originalist. It's not apples to apples on any day of the week. Here is one person that the Democrats oppose on, whether they oppose him based on his previous decisions, whether they oppose him based on his demeanor in the hearings or his lack of substance in some cases during the hearings. Whatever the reason, they made their objection because of the individual that was nominated. Republicans made their objection to every person, not just the people. They made their objection to President Obama getting anyone through. And so for them not to be able to parse the difference between that is disingenuous, is rather incompetent on the Democratic side. But for the Republicans to assert that is not only hypocritical, but it's highly disingenuous, because they never had any intention of allowing President Obama to fulfill his responsibility as a president. Because as Mitch McConnell said, When he became the Senate Majority Leader, he said their goal over the next 2 years, between 2010 and 2012, was to deny President Obama a second term. And part of that equation was to deny President Obama the opportunity to do his job and to fill these seats. And so now here we come full circle. They've used what happened in 2013 as a justification to go nuclear. All the Republicans supported it. All the Democrats and liberal-leaning independents opposed it. Mitch McConnell said this. He said, this is the less, he is the one doing the nuclear option. Mitch McConnell is one of the greatest weasels, sons of bitches I've ever met in my life, or ever even heard about in my life, because he is the one carrying out the nuclear option, yet he is able and willing to fix his mouth to say this. He said, this is the latest escalation in the left's never-ending judicial war, the most audacious yet, and it cannot and will not stand. Wait a minute. What cannot, will, and will not stand? The fact that you went nuclear today, that you did it and now blame the Democrats for it? He went on to say, it cannot and will not stand. There cannot be two sets of standards. One for the nominees of the Democratic president, and another for the nominees of Republican presidents. What the hell are you talking about? You are the person who set two different standards. The standards that you set for the Democratic president, McConnell, was that they would not get anyone confirmed under any circumstances. Merrick Garland could not get a hearing, could not get a meeting. That's the standard that your turtle looking ass set. And now you're saying that this is the Democrats. One thing I will give Mitch McConnell, not out of due respect, because he doesn't do any respect, but game recognized game. Mitch McConnell is a master of the political art of war. Mitch McConnell is a master of doublespeak. He does not care if he is the one stabbing you in the back. He will look at you through a mirror, I guess, while he stabs you in the back and blame you for the knife being put in your back. He will look at you and say, you're not going to have different sets of options of standards here, right? You're not going to say this is wrong while I stab you in the back. It's not wrong for me to stab you in the back because you might slap me later on, right? This is him. While he's jabbing you in the back, he is willing to look you in the face and say, don't complain because you did this to yourself. He is the master of doublespeak. He's the master of propaganda, and he's done a masterful job of it since he's been the Senate Majority Leader. And it's just fascinating that the Democrats are not able to call this out and to weaponize his tactics against him. This is Mitch McConnell actually stabbing America in the back while looking at America and saying, actually, no, it's your fault. Listen to Mitch McConnell.
The Majority Leader.
Our Democratic colleagues have done something today that is unprecedented in the history of the Senate. Unfortunately, it has brought us to this point. We need to restore the norms and traditions of the Senate and get past this unprecedented partisan
but you
filibuster.
did it.
Therefore, I raise a point of order that the vote on cloture under the precedent set on November 21st, 2013 is a majority vote on all nominations.
The precedent of November 21st, 2013 did not apply to nominations to the Supreme Court. Those nominations are considered under the plain language Rule 22. The point of order is not sustained.
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
All right, so this is where the actual nuclear option initiated, and they went on with it. The language is unbelievable for him to be the person carrying out this act to subvert the power of the Senate and the respect of the Senate such that it exists, simultaneously being the person doing it, but blaming it on the people across the aisle. That is masterful, Mitch McConnell. I mean, just from one political propagandist to another. Right? Because the game recognized game. I know political propaganda. I studied it extensively. Masterful, but you can't pull it. You could play the Democrats. The Democrats clearly don't see or don't know how to vocalize exactly what you just did to them. So you can play the Democrats, but I mean, the rest of us know better. Now, this is John McCain on the same exact issue. Let's listen to John McCain.
After 200 years, at least 100 years of this tradition where the Senate has functioned pretty well, they think it'd be a good idea to blow it up.
There's some that say
Idiot. No, whoever says that is a stupid idiot who has not been here and seen what I've been through and how we were able to avoid that on several occasions. And they're stupid and they've deceived their voters because they're so stupid.
Now, you would think he was talking about Republicans, because the Republicans are the ones who just blew it up. But what he's saying is that, no, Democrats are stupid and their voters are stupid, and the voters have been deceived because they have just blown up the nuclear option. Dig a little bit deeper. What he's saying is, because you did not acquiesce with this individual that President Trump has nominated, because you did not bend over and capitulate, then you are now responsible for us destroying an institution that has been observed in the Senate for the last 100 years. So in other words, this is an act. What's this man's name? John McCain. One of these bastards. John McCain literally has used the logic of terrorists. He is literally using the tactic and the logic of terrorists, saying, if you don't do what we want, we are going to blow you up. And blowing you up is your fault because you did not do what we want. Congratulations, John McCain. You are a political terrorist in the United States Senate, along with your comrade. No, you're not even worthy of using the term comrade. Along with your fellow, no, I'm not even gonna call you apparatchik. Well, along with your fellow, John, Mitch McConnell. Anyway, no other way to describe it. Just call the man's name out. You guys are political propagandists and terrorists, because you have blown up the filibuster, yet you blame it on the people who did not acquiesce with your political demands. And so what do we have now? The sum total of what we have is that we're likely going to get Gorsuch confirmed probably, definitely before they go on this 2-week break. So that means over the weekend, quite possibly that they will have. And actually, in context of what happened tonight in Syria, it's likely they may not go out on the break as soon.